Today is the 28th of May 2022 and there are very worrying developments. Hello guys, let's come back to the channel and see how the Russia-Ukraine war is been developing. Let's zoom into the map to the east, that is where the Donbas region is located, and see how the front lines have changed or have evolved over the past 24 hours or so. As we can see, those red signs of missiles, they are Russian attack points. So we can see that there is heavy bombardment of different locations to the north, to the south, but very little to the east. The blue ones are the Ukrainian missile strikes. We can see that it's very little here and there. Yes, of course, Ukrainian troops cannot match the Russian troops in terms of missile strikes. And it has been reported that the ratio is more of 1:20, which is a very huge gap between the missile strikes from Ukrainian side and the Russian the Russian side. Zooming further to the area around Liman. As we speak right now, live updates from the Ukrainian military communications are indicating that Russia is making some threatening gains in the Donbas region, especially from the north around Liman. Russia has managed to capture the railway facility that was harboring the Ukrainian forces, and as a result, we have seen Ukrainian forces retreating further southwards towards Sloviansk. Looking at the distance between where the Russian forces are located right now and the next town is just about 7.4 miles, which means the next town close to Liman is not safe at all, because Russian missiles can even reach that, and we can see some signs of shelling in that small town. And also around Seversk, Russian forces are threatening that area as well, because they are just 2.5 miles away from the north, and shelling has not started. There's no sign of shelling, but they are fast approaching towards that area. And as we have seen that Ukrainian forces have retreated back, which means Russian forces will likely pass through all this area with little resistance. And the retreat of the Ukrainian forces signals the crumbling of its defensive line. It shows that the defensive line of the Ukrainian forces is fast falling. And today we have some developing news that the Russian forces have managed to blow the bridge around this location. This is very bad news for the Ukrainian forces, since they rely on this bridge for crossing. So Russian forces have done this tactical act to restrict the movement of the Ukrainian forces by looking at the area of Liman, how the front line has changed. We can see that as of yesterday, this was the front line before the Russian troops advanced to take control of the railway industrial area. But as of today, we can see there is a major change, and the Russian forces have moved further south into this woodland area and occupied the whole of the railway line, pushing further down the Ukrainian troops. And there is no sign that the Ukrainian forces can be able to stand against the Russian forces that are advancing from the north. The area around Severodonetsk, the Ukrainian forces have managed to stand firm against the advancing Russian forces, because yesterday we saw Russian forces moving a little bit into the build-up area of the town of Severodonetsk, but today we have seen the Ukrainian forces have pushed back the Russians out of the town, which means they have managed to stand firm against the Russian forces. So But we are not likely to see the Ukrainian forces managing to push further. They just pushed them out of the town, which is something good. Yes, they have managed to defend the town, but for how long can they stand against the advancing Russian forces? That's what we are likely to wait to see. So at the moment, the Ukrainian troops have the option to retreat towards Slovansk, that is across the Donetsk River. And that will be the most plausible tactical approach right now, because the area is more of open space and Russian troops are advancing at a very fast pace, so they have to cross the river, the Donetsk River, and blow up the three crossing points, that is the road bridge and the rail bridge, as well as the dam crossing area. The dam is not that big, so they can control, blast it, and it will not cause much of damage to downstream. So they can do that to as they retreat. It will take some time for the Russian troops to cross that river. The enclave around Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, we can see that the distance is between Popasna and north of Lysychansk is getting even smaller. Right now, it's about 12.6 miles, which means Russian missiles from the north can strike any point in between, and from Popasna can strike any point in between, which means Russian forces are closing in to encircle the Ukrainian forces around the Lysychansk area. And in the coming few days, we are likely to see this whole area encircled. But what worries the most is the width of the area which Russia is attacking at the moment. The area is very wide, so that if they occupy this whole area, we are not likely to see any counter attack from the Ukrainian forces. Sorry, and that means Russian forces will be attacking the Ukrainian forces that will be encircled in between Lysychansk, from the north, from the east, from the south, and from the west. We might see another Mariupol situation taking place. But at the moment, I'm not so sure why the Ukrainian forces are still holding up to Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. But we can see that they are more and more getting enclosed. Maybe they should have done a tactical retreat, but a tactical retreat, which means we'll give Russia of the Donetsk region. Because previously we heard that Russia controls about 90% of the Donetsk region, and the bigger part that was under contestation is Lysychansk. So if Lysychansk and Severodonetsk fall to Russia, which means that will be 100% takeover. Now, looking at the distances to the nearby villages that are likely to fall very soon, we can see many locations around are less than 10 miles away from the Russian front line, and all these locations are likely to fall very, very soon. Let's look at what has been happening around Popasna. And there is a big threat around Bakhmut, because right now as we speak, Russian forces are less than 10 miles away from Bakhmut, and they have made a major gain towards the M03 highway, and they are now about 1.2 miles away to capture and cut that highway as well, leading the south to Bakhmut, which means Ukrainian forces are retreating more and more into towns and exposing those towns and civilians to Russian forces, because as Ukrainian forces start defending in towns, then there is a problem, because Russian forces will do what they did in Mariupol, destroying everything, including the shelters that the Ukrainian forces will be using. So Ukrainian forces retreating into Bakhmut, it means Bakhmut is now the prime target for the Russian forces, and sooner or later we are likely to see Bakhmut falling as well. These developments are showing that Ukrainian defense lines are not that strong to resist the advancing Russian forces. And as we know, yes, of course, we know the differences in terms of artillery. Russian forces have more artillery compared to Ukrainian forces, and as a result, the Russian forces have a bigger advantage in terms of attacking, in terms of distance strikes, compared to Ukrainian forces. So Ukrainian forces are mostly depending on retreating with little resistance, and they are retreating much deep into out of the Donbas region, which means sooner or later we are likely to see the whole of the Donbas region under Russian control. But as we know about the Russian tactic, what they did in Mariupol, usually they are likely to destroy that small township of Severodonetsk, so that they have no obstacles of Ukrainian troops firing from the buildings, and so we are likely to see more destruction if Russians continue to advance towards that city. But surrounding this area around the nearby villages, they are more open, no forests, just farmlands, which means Ukrainian troops cannot retreat into these farmlands because they will be exposed to Russian missile strikes. So we are like, if the Ukrainian troops retreat, we are likely to see them retreating further, even across the Donetsk River. But they will be going towards the southern front of the Russian front line. So this is a very tricky situation developing here.